So my name's Clair Rochester, and I'm fortunate to have worked with the Teapot Trust in running a pilot outdoor art therapy project in the holidays. I've been a practicing art therapist for nearly 20 years and a voice school practitioner for about 13 years. And I've worked in the NHS, educational settings, and the third sector. Particular interest in neurodiverse children and families benefiting from creative approaches outdoors in nature. So I'm going to present two new outdoor art therapy projects which I ran supported by the Teapot Trust over 2 times 2 days in August 2023 and another follow-up 2-day project in October 2023 with the same children. The projects aim to create a safe, supportive environment for a small group of neurodiverse children and who are approximately 9 to 12 years of age, who may feel particularly anxious about big changes and transitions. The aim is to explore enjoyable, creative ways to feel more at ease, mainly outdoors in natural environments. So why neurodiverse children? Research shows that approximately 40% of children diagnosed with autism or ADHD also have an anxiety disorder. And current research places an intolerance of uncertainty at the heart of an anxiety disorder in autism. Sadly, autistic children are 28 times more likely to attempt suicide. And school-based anxiety is disproportionately higher in children who are neurodiverse and who have additional support needs. So the Teapot Trust promoted the outdoor art therapy project through social media and local services and schools in the area that I'm based. Sorry, if you just keep back up. If I sort of say when to go on to the next slide, that would be great. Thanks. Yes, just on this slide. So on this project, we had 8 children in total on all the projects, each having more than one neurodivergent condition. They were 4 girls and 4 boys, all which experienced significant anxiety. There were 6 children diagnosed with autism. There was 2 diagnosed with ADHD, 2 children diagnosed with learning disabilities. There was 1 child diagnosed with a speech disorder, and 1 child was being assessed for fetal alcohol syndrome. Most of the children had additional learning needs such as dyslexia and dyscalculia. All the children struggled with change, new people and situational sensory sensitivities. 3 children used noise-reducing ear defenders and 2 children used visual communication cards. 1 child was in foster care and another child was a young carer as mum and siblings had disabilities. And all these children found attending school challenging. 1 child hadn't attended school for nearly 3 years and another was on a very reduced timetable. So on the summer projects, I was the sole art therapist supported by 3 very experienced volunteers. And on the autumn project, I co-worked with another art therapist called Nan Tran, who is also a forest school practitioner. I will now take a look at a small selection of different experiences of autism and ADHD, which impact on anxiety, and how this project explored ways to reduce anxiety. I will use the analogy of an anxiety bucket, with challenges that can fill up the anxiety bucket and approaches that can reduce the sense of overwhelm and anxiety. I will focus on areas of executive functioning and flexibility of thought, emotional, social and communication difficulties, and sensory difficulties. So just next, please. So difficulties with flexibility of thought refers to challenges adjusting to changes, demands, priorities, or perspectives due to difficulties tolerating unpredictability and uncertainty. Difficulties with flexibility of thought and holding the overall context in mind leads to challenges in learning and believing that there are different ways of thinking, feeling and behaving, leading to a vicious cycle of anxiety. It is also worth noting that 90% of young people with ADHD and 80% of those with autism suffer with sleep problems. And we know that poor sleep can exacerbate anxiety. Executive functioning difficulties impacts a person's ability to process information. And challenges include poor sense of time and forgetfulness, a lack of filter, zoning out, poor organisation and difficulty prioritising. Next. So to reduce anxiety, it can help to prepare in advance of any changes and to talk clearly through plans and expectations and different things to take into consideration. Before the project, all children and families were sent a visual timetable and given a handbook explaining all aspects of the project. The visual timetable was used throughout the project, providing a structure and organisation and offering a sense of control and predictability. Activities were interactive, exploring different materials and connecting with nature, and allowed for physical movement from indoor and outdoor spaces. Throughout the project, we explored different choices and perspectives and ways of relating to each other and the natural environment. Sleep hygiene and routine were discussed throughout some of the creative activities. And interestingly, I asked what helped the children to get good sleep, and they all spontaneously and in unison replied melatonin. So they also said weighted blankets, music, audiobooks, and lavender helped them sleep. Next. So this is just an example of a visual timetable that was sent to the children for the summer project, and it clearly shows that the times, the transitions to different environments and spaces, and the creative activities exploring the different senses. And I'll explain more about that when we look at the children's artwork. Next. And this is also an example of the visual timetable for the autumn project that was sent to the children in advance. And likewise, we will look at the children's artwork from both these projects shortly, so you'll get a better idea of how they benefited. So next. So continuing with looking at neurodiversity, around 50% of autistic young people have difficulty identifying and describing their own emotions. And this is known as alexithymia. This leads to greater uncertainty and unpredictability, which can make it more difficult to regulate emotions. So alexithymia has been linked to difficulties in accurately sensing the internal signals of anxiety, such as changes in heart rate or a rush of adrenaline. And this can make internal sensations confusing and unpredictable, leading to anxiety. Young people with autism or ADHD may experience social anxiety because they find it difficult to navigate social situations. Emotions can be experienced very intensely and can be difficult to regulate alongside perceived social rejection. So for these projects that we ran, I carefully considered the social and group dynamics, assessing each child's strengths and challenges. As a common challenge for these children is social anxiety and friendships, I was cautious about the social outcomes of the children on this project. I was mindful that structured activities can be easier for the children to manage more than fluid social activities. However, my concerns did not transpire. Next. Just to say that the adults on the project were kind, responsive, and non-judgmental role models. And they kept their language calm, clear, and concrete, which was extremely helpful. The project explored emotional regulation through creative approaches, including calm breathing, grounding techniques, body awareness, and mindfulness. This included focusing attention on our sensory experiences of nature, listening to birds singing, feeling different textures of natural objects, smelling plants and herbs, tasting fruits, and noticing all the colours, forms, and landscapes that we can see. All the children on the projects had a shared interest in art, nature, and the outdoors. Therefore, the activities helped them to interact and allowed for choice and flexibility and time to reflect. The choice of fluid indoor and outdoor spaces helped to reduce social anxiety, as children could choose where and when they interacted with others. A wonderful outcome of this project was the social connections that the children made. And there was lots of playful interactions and interesting discussions. They related, accepted, and respected each other, and even made friends and exchanged contact numbers so they could keep in touch. Next. So we carefully considered and created environment and spaces was extremely important aspect of this project. And these pictures give you a flavour of that. On the summer project, we used a paddock and there was a stable. In the paddock stable, there was 2 hammocks for relaxation. There was log roundels for sitting on and hay bales. There were sensory relaxation tools, a sand train, drawing materials. At the far corner of the paddock was an area for relaxation in hammocks and a swing and swings. And the marquee also allowed for a fluid indoor-outdoor space. They all loved the hammocks and the swings, which was great for vestibular and proprioceptive sensory benefits too. The children enjoyed playing and having freedom and space. One child chose to make a den. Another loved using bug finders and sharing his great knowledge of wildlife with others. Next. And likewise on the autumn project, we were fortunate enough to use a farm venue. So we used a different venue, partly because of the weather and getting colder, and just generally having this fantastic opportunity. So we had art activities in the spacious barn, and at the far end of the barn, there was an area for relaxation on a sofa.
No, you're good, you're good.
On a sofa, hay bales and log roundels. Sensory relaxation tools, sand trays and drawing materials were also available. And then we had a variety of other outdoor spaces as well to use, including a walled garden with hammocks and swings, apple trees to climb on, and a harvest of fruits and vegetables to discover and taste. The children enjoyed picking apples, beans and peas, and later roasting apples with cinnamon on the fire pit. There were cows to watch across the field and 5 friendly Shetland sheep to visit. We had a designated outdoor fire pit area too. So next. Also on the autumn project, we played parachute games. It was a helpful icebreaker at the start of the day, a fun, socially interactive activity during the lunch break, and an enjoyable way to end each day. It was a testament to how safe and comfortable the children felt with each other that they all participated in these parachute games. And bearing in mind on the 2nd October project, the children were familiar with each other because they had met in the summer. Next. On the autumn project, so just to talk about the sensory difficulties, neurodivergent children can be hyper or hyposensitive to sound, smells, visuals, touch and taste. These sensory sensitivities can be experienced as overwhelming. However, calm sensory experiences can also reduce anxiety, leading to this project being structured to explore calm sensory approaches. Next. On the summer project, the creation of a calm kit formed the basis of the project structure for each child, structure by each child, personalising their calm kit and then basing each creative activity on one or more of the senses to aid relaxation. Calm kits help to regulate emotions and develop mindful awareness grounding techniques. For this project, the children could choose from 2 types of bags, one a 5-zip pocket canvas toolkit and another 5 heart-shaped canvas toolkit that are at the top of this slide. During the project, they made or were given sensory tools to put in each pocket, one for sight, sound, smell, touch and taste. And all of the strategies on this slide, because I appreciate there's a lot of information there, was utilised in the project throughout the structure of the 5 senses. Next. And here's some pictures to show that. All the children really liked the calm kits and they talked about using it in their daily lives. They enjoyed the choice of materials and they talked about where they would keep the artwork at home in their calm space at home. The creative activities also helped them with concentration, perseverance, frustration tolerance and fine motor skills. Making dream catchers, for instance, provided an opportunity to discuss what helps us with sleep. And using clay and essential oils, lavender and potpourri at the end of the day was a very grounding exercise and helped the children to feel calm before leaving the project. Next. Again, stone decorating encouraged discussions about positive and kind things that we can say to ourselves and others, and it led on well to making individual Zen gardens. The children loved the calming process of raking the sand and creating a calming environment, and this helped to develop their imagination. The herb gardens were another good grounding activity at the end of the day. The children enjoyed smelling and learning about herbs. They enjoyed the process of planting and discussing the calming and healing properties of herbs. Next. On the autumn project, the children explored more calm, creative approaches. They were all given a bullet journal, and they chose different sensory stickers with textures and smells and relaxation tips, such as calm breathing and sensory awareness exercises. They used the journals to explore their own ways to feel calm and reflect at the start and the end of the day. And they could reflect on what they had enjoyed and what they had discovered for their own well-being. On day 2 of the autumn project, one girl came back and was keen to show her journal, saying that she and her mum had done some art therapy together and had each drawn an animal with a pattern that they could follow their finger around to feel calm. So it was really great to see that link with home between being on the project and going home. Next. On the autumn project, the children enjoyed using a variety of natural materials that they could connect with, that they could connect the environment with, that they were exploring. They used sheep wool to make felted soap, and they could understand the connection between the sheep that they'd been visiting and the crafts and use of wool. They enjoyed using coloured beeswax and fake fur to make textured tile art. And here's some examples. Next. Just go into the next slide. Just to briefly show you some more pictures, because the activities were very seasonal and they loved pumpkin carving as well, and just to show how original they all were. Next. So the children enjoyed finding natural materials in the woodland to make sensory sound and vision tubes. We explored the woodland area and we used all our senses to discover how nature can help us feel calm and connected. Again, making clay pots and essential oil pine cones at the end of the day was very grounding and calming. And the last slide, finally. At the end of each project, parents were invited to join us for an ending ritual, where we drew our attention to what we could feel, hear, smell, and see, and reflect on how we had explored these senses during the project to help us feel calm and relaxed. This quote from a parent whose son had not attended school for 3 years summed up how rewarding and meaningful the summer outdoor art therapy project has been. And she said, "I feel it helped in every area more. My child made friends for the first time ever. He spent time away from me for longer than a couple of hours in the first time in years. He didn't feel anxious. He loved the activities and said that he wished he could learn in that way that he learnt at the workshop. And if he was allowed, he would go every day, and that would be his school. It was very emotional for both of us and a huge step forward in his development, confidence and socialising. He has continued to use the sensory items and things he learned. Being part of this group made him feel that he has a place. He has a place there and he fits in. This is the first time he has experienced feeling safe without mum." And again, after the autumn project, this same parent wrote, "I just wanted to say a big thank you for running the past 2 days art therapy. He absolutely loved every minute of it. The combination of sensory activities, environment and people was just perfect to help him regulate and enjoy the experience. I can't believe how relaxed he is around you guys. Also, he has made a friend, which is amazing. It was extremely heartwarming to get this feedback, and also to learn that he has returned to school. He's managing a few mornings each week, and that is an amazing outcome. And finally, one thing I kept hearing the children say during the project was, I wish school was like this. This really brought home to me that given the right environment and the right approach, these children can really thrive. So that's completes the presentation, and thank you very, very much for giving me this opportunity to share that with you. I haven't given my details like Zoe did, but obviously if anybody wants to contact, I'll be more than happy. I'm sure Cat can share that. That'd be really great to connect with people after this. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Claire. Having been involved for one day in the project, Claire, it was absolutely wonderful, and as you mentioned at the end there, really seeing that the children themselves just feel so confident at the end of it was wonderful. There has been some questions. So Zoe, if you're there, yes, brilliant, thank you. There's a couple of questions around the sort of, I think Zoe, in your presentation, you talked about the children gradually feeling more at ease. And then Claire, you talked about the children again it was just, was there any evidence, or do you have any feeling yourself around the sort of optimum amount of time that children need to, for sessions? Is 8 weeks, or is there any evidence around what sort of level of provision is needed, really, is I think the question.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead, Claire?
No, you go. Yeah.
In terms of evidence, so not specifically for nature-based or outdoor-based art therapy, we do have evidence from arts therapies more broadly in terms of the optimum time. I mean, from what I was reading, anything sort of looking at the minimum time, it would be around from 12 sessions, if it's like hourly 12 sessions is what we're seeing from evidence, that sort of to see any meaningful, sustainable, long-term impact, 12 sessions seem to be the minimum. Obviously, if we're looking into the NHS, for example, even delivering 12 sessions can be a huge privilege sometimes. But in terms of the time that children specifically would like to spend outside, in our project, they had an entire day and they were perfectly fine with that. Now, obviously, if the weather conditions are, do not allow us to spend the entire day outside, we're not forcing children to spend the whole time outside. We can get inspiration from nature, maybe spend an hour or 2 hours, and then take some things from nature and do things inside. So it doesn't have to be that if the conditions don't allow that, it doesn't mean that we have to stay outside, but we can still be inspired by nature and do things while we're inside. Obviously, this project was arts rather than art therapies when we spent the entire day. But in terms of art therapy, I guess the evidence we have comes from not working specifically outside when it comes to optimal time, but comes from art therapies in general. But that would be a really interesting topic to explore, I guess, in future research. What would be the ideal time to spend outside in a therapeutic setting rather than so doing art therapy rather than arts.
Brilliant, thank you. Claire, did you want to come in there too?
Just to say that in terms of the forest school approach, which obviously isn't therapy, but they say a minimum of 6 sessions for that connection with nature. Yeah, so I would go along with that and a minimum. And interestingly, you've said 12, but and also when you're spending a whole day or half a day, that's at a time, that's a wonderful immersion, isn't it? So
I should clarify that I didn't mean 12 weeks or 12 sessions to achieve nature connection, but rather to see a significant change in any difficulty that the child is experiencing. But to achieve connection with nature, it can be much shorter than that. Absolutely. I agree with you, Claire.
Brilliant, thank you. And again, it's sort of linked in terms of sort of how long this, you know, whether there's ever any research or evidence around the long-term effects of this for children, and is there any follow-up done, or would you plan to do that to see, you know, 6 months down the line, is that still having an impact for children?
So from my systematic review, none of the studies had a follow-up. I think there was only one study that had follow-up, and it wasn't quantitative based. It was sort of interviewing people to see if there was still the changes were long-term. But this is 100% an area that we need more of. So we need to make sure that the changes are sustainable and long-term. From the systematic review, there wasn't anything at all from current studies.
Yeah. Claire, did you want to add anything?
Well, I mean, this was a pilot, which is kind of why it was relatively short, 2 days per project. But and it was great to have a follow-up. So there's a kind of some research there to be done with the follow-up. But this is the start of something, isn't it? Definitely.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. And then I've got a question for you, Claire, which is, given how impactful this has been for children living with autism, should we be offering more art therapy outside like this as a means of helping many who don't have a diagnosis?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes is the answer. Yeah. Definitely. I'm hearing it a lot. So yeah, because you know, the more you talk to people about these things, it's there's definitely a need, and this kind of approach is extremely helpful. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. I'm just checking we've had some lovely comments in the chat just about how inspiring it sounds and how wonderful it is to see the projects, you know, see examples of these projects. There's one quick question. What can we learn from this to take into our garden at Glasgow? What do we think? Is there any ideas you could offer?
Use it.
Yeah.
Use the garden. Be out in it. Connect with the seasons, I suppose.
Yeah, there was a specific question actually just come in there about whether this is something that can be used for, you know, for people who are in hospital. Can this be adapted to use in hospital, and also was can it be also adapted in to use within mainstream schools? So that is there elements of this that people can use in the work that they're doing?
That's the work that I'm really working on at the moment, is trying to bring together a fund application about arts therapists working together with community support workers or peer workers, to just, I guess, to work with more professionals, because obviously arts therapists are a bit overstretched at the moment in the NHS. So 100% it can be adapted, but to persuade sort of the senior leadership to give us time and the resources for that has been a really, really big challenge. But it can happen. It's just you need to persuade people and have the evidence to back this up as well.
Yeah,
And also say back on the garden, just to emphasize the sensory experience. So the smells and the textures, and then to encourage wildlife into the garden, so that, you know, we really enhance that connection with nature and ourselves.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, both of you. Oh, did you want to say something, Zoe?
No, it's just a last question from Ali, I think, on the chat, but which I 100% agree with. If the question, does it have to be all or nothing, or is there a possibility to bring little bits of? So if you're starting this as a new, you know, as an art therapy practitioner, and it is so new to you, even just taking little steps to incorporate nature in your work, you would 100% gradually feel more confident to take your sessions outside. But it doesn't have to be go straight and spend every session outside. It really doesn't have to be like that. It has to be with us feeling confident as well, delivering sessions outdoors. So we shouldn't underestimate how much energy and resources and preparation that needs. So absolutely agree with that. It can be little bits rather than all or nothing.
And there was a question, so I've just seen another question around whether there are particular types of therapy depending on the children's health problems that they have that would be suited to. But I think from what you're saying there is about thinking about what those needs are and what can be
Yeah,
used and brought in.
and asking children directly what they need and what they want, rather than us making assumptions about them. So if they have specific needs, it's about asking them, how can we accommodate your needs? How much time you want to spend outside? So we don't have to have the answers. We can just ask people.
Yeah, great. And I think there was a lot of the activities that Claire did in that were in the timetable that you had, Claire, that were using natural materials and things that had been found that could be adapted for areas that are not completely.
You bring the outside in, don't you?
Yeah.
You can have that's that thing about having a fluid outdoor space, isn't it? Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, we're just going to head off into a sort of short comfort break, but just again to say thank you both so much for sharing your findings and your work, and I think there will be people who might want to get in touch with you, so we'll make sure that we share contact details, and if you're both happy to speak to people if they're particularly interested. But thank you very much.
Thank you so much
for joining us today. So we're just going to have a 10-minute comfort break. So we'll come back at 11:25. That would be great. Thank you.